So, in the whole saga of frenzy, you have this fundamental question, right? What happens when a being that's literally defined by nothingness suddenly starts to feel something? Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today. This really terrifying hypothetical scenario about Gibbeshattschatten, the Twilight Puppet King, and his transformation from this hollow sovereign into a monstrous biomechanical idol. And this quote, this one line, is really the key to the whole thing. It tells you right from the get-go, before we even start, that this is a tragedy. See, the king's whole quest for absolute, total control, it's not going to end in victory. Nope. It's going to end with him building his own prison, a bigger, heavier cage of his own making.
All right, so here's our roadmap for this tragic journey. We'll start with who the Puppet King is, then look at the glitch that kicks everything off. After that, we'll get into the whole flesh fused with iron thing, his huge misunderstanding of what's happening, and finally, the rusted idol's cage he ends up in. Okay, so before we can really get into the horror of what he becomes, we've got to understand what he is, or maybe more accurately, what he isn't at the very beginning of all this. So the lore calls this the absolute not I. And you have to wrap your head around this. Gibbeshattan isn't a person. Not really. He's a total vacuum, just an empty shell. His whole existence is just reflecting back all the fears and desires that his subjects, the weary, project onto him. I mean, just look at how he's described. It tells you everything you need to know. He's a hollow shell. He has wooden joints. He sits on a throne of rusted iron. What do all those have in common? None of them are alive. He's not really a ruler. He's more like a function, a regulator, just there to keep everything in the marketplace completely static. Right. So you've got this perfect, empty, unchanging state. But it's about to break. Everything is about to change because of one single, totally unprecedented event, a glitch in the nothingness. For the absolute first time, this empty thing feels something, a sensation. It's not a thought, it's not an emotion, it's a physical, rhythmic throbbing deep inside his chest. And you gotta understand, for a being that is defined by not having an inside, this is a catastrophic system failure. And here, this is where the tragedy really kicks into gear. He completely, fundamentally misreads what's happening to him. He thinks this new pulse is coming from the outside, the vibration of the herd. He feels his own body starting to form, and he mistakes it for the gravity of sovereignty. But what's actually happening, his internal void, that gilded hollow, is imploding on itself. It's sucking in the physical world to fill that emptiness. So, because he gets it so wrong, it leads directly to this horrifying physical transformation. That imploding void starts building him a new body, fusing together organic parts and mechanical parts into one single monstrous new form. Let's start with the mechanical side of things. The actual rust from his throne starts to creep into his body, fusing with his spine. He becomes this twisted, corrupted version of the watchmaker from the parables. He's literally becoming the machine of state. And his movements, they're no longer that jerky puppet-like stutter. Now they have the precise, grinding, terrifying inevitability of gears. But here's the really grotesque part. It's not just metal. Woven all through this new clockwork body are strands of flesh. And we're not talking about healthy living tissue here. Now, this is like the symbolic rot of the world made manifest. It's the repressed shadows, the ancestral blood, all the stuff the jester was trying to bring into the light. It's now literally becoming a part of the king's body. So, okay, he's turning into this biomechanical horror show. But what does the king himself think is happening? I mean, this is the master of stasis and control we're talking about. He sees this change, and he thinks it's a total victory. And this is his ultimate delusion right here. On one hand, he believes he's reaching this perfect synthesis, this higher unity with all his subjects. But the grotesque reality? He's suffering this violent internal resistance, what the lore calls a Fichtean Anstoß. He thinks he's mastering the shadows, but really he's just being digested by the chaos of physical existence. He believes he's becoming a god, when in fact he's just becoming an object, a literal thing in itself. This quote just nails it, doesn't it? The jester, his arch-nemesis, always laughed at the idea of a beautiful cage. This perfect, orderly world that's actually just a prison. And in his quest to perfect his own control, the Puppet King has gone and literally built that exact cage with himself trapped inside.
So, what's the point of this new rusted idol? What does this cage actually do? Well, the final result of his transformation is terrifyingly efficient.
His whole mission becomes this cold, unfeeling, mechanical procedure. Kind of like the tarantulas from the lore, he starts to weave this clockwork reality, forcing absolute mechanical order onto everything. He gets rid of all the messy chaos of life, of becoming, and replaces it with the cold, hard, binary logic of a machine. And maybe the most chilling part of all, he doesn't just reflect the will of the people anymore. He now actively consumes it. He digests it. And in a way, he finally gets what he always wanted: total stasis. But it's not the peace of a living kingdom. It's the peace of the cemetery. He achieves this perfect stability by literally processing the individuality, the free will of every single one of his subjects through his new mechanical heart, turning their souls into just predictable data.
And that, right there, is the punchline to the whole Jester's saga of frenzy. The Puppet King, so desperate to escape the messiness of life and death, the verdant absurdity, he ends up becoming the ultimate joke. He traps himself in a state where he can't truly live, but he can't ever die either. All he can do is rust. So he was searching for the peace of that final, unchanging sunset, and all he found was rust. It really leaves you with this one big question, doesn't it? What is the true cost of absolute control?